Well, thank you to everyone for joining me in the second Sustainable Conversations in Sustainable Floral Design with Sue. I'm going to take this time every Monday at 10 a.m. PST to talk about different topics in the field of sustainable floral design with industry leaders and product developers. And so I'm super excited to have Sue with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So I do invite anyone to ask questions, and I'm going to try to keep my eye on them as they go and block out Sue's beautiful face on the bottom of the screen. That's the bummer of the Instagram Live. Yes, chin up, darling, chin up. Extend your neck. So, hey, how's the new studio treating you?
It's treating me well. I have some furniture in it now. I'm using it. It's functioning. It's great to have, space in the house. It's small, but it's got what I need.
Are you able to tune out the distractions of the household and focus? No.
Not really. I mean, sure. Yeah. If I can ever focus, yeah.
You seem really focused. You're cranking out the videos.
Yeah. I'm trying to stay productive for sure.
How are you doing that, Sue? Are you scheduling every day? Okay, every day at X, I need to sit down and do something, or are you just things coming to you, or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not so disciplined. You know that because you're my friend. But when I get an idea in my head, I do give myself permission to take as much time as I need to kind of explore it and chew through it. So I'm not organized. I don't have a good schedule right now. I imagine that will have to change because this is kind of the new normal for the time being. But I've been kind of floating around, Lucy style, loosey-goosey.
Do you feel do you have much anxiety about this whole pandemic that we're in? We are recording this in April of 2020 when we're all shut in our homes.
Yeah, I feel better now than I did, the first several weeks of this situation. I was waking up in the middle of the night with anxiety, really about getting sick. What if I get sick and then my husband gets sick, and what happens to my elderly mom and our kids and so on. But I've kind of let go of some of that anxiety because, we're doing the best we can to protect ourselves, and what can you do?
Not happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've let that go, and I feel like I've worked through that anxiety a little bit more. Right now, I'm really worried about our industry. I'm optimistic, but scared.
Yeah. I remember when we had the 2008 recession, I was in the landscape industry, and I remember how different it looked when we came out of that. Yeah. So many of the small growers went under, and with them, so many of the little, treasure variety plants, and they were just hard to find anymore. And it took a lot of years for that to come back. So
yeah, we got it really bad here in Detroit, in the Detroit metro area, because of, the housing bubble and then losing the auto industry jobs.
Yeah.
So that was particularly painful in our neck of the woods. So I remember that as well. And I remember, coming together with other florists and kind of forming a little, friend group to borrow from and to work for, and, vice versa. That really helped. So I think we're going to have to kind of stick together, help each other out.
Yeah.
Share bases.
Yep. Yeah. Share bases, share labor.
Yep.
Yeah, all of it. You don't have do you so how do the creative ideas come to you now through this kind of tense time? Do you have anything to share with other people about nurturing yourself so that you can keep that little creative flame nurtured?
Yeah, so, again, the first several weeks I didn't feel creative, and I was really worried about myself, what's going to happen? When will I get some creative energy back? And I don't really know what I did to work through that, but all of a sudden, I kind of a switch flipped where my mindset changed from, oh my God, I don't have what I need, to, oh my gosh, I have this little thing in front of me. How can I make the most out of that? So it was really a mind flip. And once I started focusing on that, I really started getting a lot of creative energy. So it sounds simple, but it started with deciding to do some lives, which I have never done. I don't watch lives typically. I don't do lives. Like, it's not my comfort zone. But I decided, how can I, like, in my house with the resources I have, the free phone and, free internet that I have, whatever, inexpensive,
right.
Way to communicate. How can I make the most out of that? So I decided to do some lives. And then I decided to take some very simple, approachable projects out of my book that I thought people might relate to because they have very few flowers in front of them at this time. So I started there. And then I thought, well, what can I do to stretch this idea? So I started with a very simple project, a very simple hyacinth project, and then pushed myself to stretch it until I found a few ways that excited me that I felt were fresh and, exciting to offer. So I don't know if that's helpful, but, what do you have in front of you and how can you dissect that thing and make the most out of it? And hopefully, fill yourself up with a little creative energy and also pass them on. That's kind of what I've been doing.
I think it ties in with the overall feeling of like, we are learning that we don't need as much as we think we need for some things, right? Like when you have limitations forced upon you, you learn how to work within them.
Yeah.
And, when we cook a recipe, if we don't have X, we can't pop off to the store and get it. So we improvise. And
exactly.
You're doing a great job of improvising.
Thank you.
I also see you're doing a lot more wiring. And is that any kind of tie into like a sustainability move away from glue, or are you just dorked out on wiring right now?
Yeah, well, it started with not having any glue at the house. And, and so I'm like, I don't really want to go drive to the studio and get the glue. But also it's been something that's bothering me. I mean, you know how much I love glue. It's like, it creates all sorts of freedom. Yeah, and it allows you to do things that you would normally be able to do. But it has been kind of nagging at me that I'm really kind of dependent on it. And actually I don't like, being exposed to the fumes as much as I've exposed myself, So, and I've always loved wiring. I really have. I've always used wiring and taught wiring and just have an affection for, traditional wire and tape methods. So, it was deliberate. Yeah.
They're good skills to have, and it creates flexibility in your designs to know how to wire. It's, a standard floral craftsmanship mechanic that everyone should know.
For sure.
I did something and I made the comments totally cover the bottom of the screen instead of just a little bit. Does anybody know how to shrink them down? If you do, let me know. I'm not very tech savvy. And I realized I forgot to press my little recorder. I'm a dunce when it comes to tech. Okay.
Oh,
we're back. Yeah.
You're back.
Anyway, it's
yes.
So it's all right. So okay, back to projects and glue. So you were talking about how you pulled a project from your book, and I'd love to hear a little bit about the book and how it came to be. And I know you've talked about this a lot and people have heard a fair bit, but can you give us some like inside scoop stuff that maybe is less talked about?
How it came to be?
How it came to be and what it was like to do it, and that whole like, what is it like to have to pull together a book and be suddenly managing creative shoots maybe differently than you have, and all of that kind of like, how does a creative shoot for a book page or a book chapter contrast to just your average kind of creative shoot that you might have done before? What's the difference, and how did you navigate all of that?
Yeah, well, okay, so the book opportunity came to me when I already had like a packed schedule of like traveling to teach and weddings and events and all of this. So I'd like to say that, I had a creative director and we had it all planned out and it was all on the calendar in advance, but it just couldn't, we couldn't do that because I was here, there, and everywhere, and the photographer I worked with, Amanda, was also incredibly busy. So we tried to be as organized and as methodical as we could be, mapping out with like color stories and model and hair and makeup and flower choices and all of those things for each.
Did you get to choose that, or was there someone from the publishing company saying, hey, we need to focus on whatever, yellow and blue, and we want you to do this or that? Like, how much did you get to determine and how much was told to you that you needed to do?
Really, the only things that were told to me were, the length of the book, what they kind of expected, which was about 225 pages. And then the other was make sure that there's enough projects in there that are approachable for a novice. So I had to be mindful that this book isn't just for florists, the ones like you and I that want to nerd out, but it's for, the person who's just, into gardening or, loves flowers and might want a pretty coffee table book, that kind of person as well. So I had to be mindful of that. And actually, I was thinking the simple projects were kind of annoying at first, like, that's boring or that's going to be too simple for the floral people in my world. But I actually liked the simple ones best. I really do. Yeah. So, the process was pretty, sometimes it felt really good. Sometimes it felt really hard, like sometimes the flowers didn't show up. And at one point my studio's air conditioning broke and I lost all of the flowers that were just perfectly conditioned and ready to be designed with, And then once you have all of the layers on the calendar, hair and makeup and photographer and model and wardrobe, once you have that all lined up, you have to deliver, So,
and you have a deadline. Most creative shoots don't have a deadline. Your flowers are your deadline, right? Everyone else's schedule is the deadline, but there isn't the added pressure of and we need this.
Yeah. So we would work in a frenzy and then we would take, a few months off to do our weddings and events and travel. And then we would start again, do another frenzy. And so back and forth like that. And some of the shoots.
How long was it?
So about a year and a half from start to finish. But there were quite a few weeks in there where we did nothing because we were not in the same country or, we had other things that we had to, other responsibilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to work when you can. Tuck it in.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, you have all the traveling is off the books now, huh?
Sure is. Yeah. Lots of good stuff on the schedule, like everybody. But
tanked.
Yep.
It'll come back, though, I think.
I think so, too.
I think it will come back. Yeah, I think it'll be a little slow. The growers and brokers that supported the education with their money, they're going to have to recover a little bit. But I think there will be a thirst for it, when people finally can. It's going to be a pent-up desire situation.
For sure. We have a question from Becca, and she's asking if I plan to do a more florist-focused nerd out book. And actually, I've been talking to a teacher friend in Australia about just that. I'm a little intimidated, but maybe it's time to nerd out all the way.
Why would you be intimidated?
Well, I just know how much work would go into it.
Yeah. But with way more complicated armatures and deeper design theory, or what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, Amy Nicole is saying do it. I'm going to reach out to you, Amy. You're going to help me with it. No, the teacher, Lynn Dallas of Pearson's, was saying that it's time for an updated floral design text that outlines the principles and elements and art theory, but applies it to the designs that people are, hungry for now. Right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be awesome. I'm distracted by trying to get to comments. cleaned up. But I think that would be super cool, and I think you'd be a good person to do it because you prize the traditional things that are good. You have a quest to dig deep and really get to the why of things. But you also have an understanding of the current and I think enduring aesthetic sense that make floristry relevant in our age and that appeals to both new florists and old florists. So I say do it, girl.
Yeah, I'm kind of warming up to this idea. Remember when we were sitting with Tomas, one of the early classes of EMC, he was saying it's all about relevancy, and that really stuck with me. Like, there's so many like rich, juicy principles and theories that are being taught, but they're not being taught with relevant examples, to draw in the modern florist, like the examples of the work. People can't see the relevancy or the,
Right, they look at it and they think, I don't like that, so then they stop. They don't want to dig in like, I don't care for that aesthetic, but look at this technique that's incorporated, or how could I shift this? They want more of an immediate, if this doesn't appeal to me, I'm done. It's out. Baby with the bathwater.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I also think that's cultural though, right? So like different countries have different aesthetics.
Yes.
And so I suppose that your audience is from an aesthetic, but I wonder about the geography of it too. And I guess it could be for North America and places where that's relevant.
Yeah.
I guess part of the challenge would be to include projects that would have global reach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I'm crafting a lesson, if you will, or like even a post on Instagram, I'm thinking about my audience, and my audience is generally like North American event florists, So I'm thinking within that context, the European florist, the Asian florist, the Australian florist, those cultures have like much richer, kind of like stronger educational roots. It's easier to find, relevant educational opportunities, I think.
But going back to Tomas's thing, like stylistically, is it relevant? Because part of the problem with floral education, I think one of the reasons why foam is so prevalent is so much of the education just perpetuates the same old thing.
Yeah.
And so, they're teaching techniques that more forward-thinking, sustainable floristry-oriented people don't want to engage with.
Right.
And so to break it down so that that's not what's being taught, and then to teach why this set of traditional mechanics like wiring and that kind of thing are still relevant and are still needed, but why we can retire some of this sort of middle-age stuff, which is the foam, and go back way farther to the time before foam and how people did things and bring those things back.
Yeah.
I don't know how much educational systems are doing that. It's a big book. Well, you have already, people want to pre-order it already. So I also saw a question. Someone wanted to know what gauge of wire you use most frequently.
Oh boy. Well, it all depends on what I'm trying to do. So if I want the thing that I'm wiring to have some rigidity or stability or stiffness, then I'll go, with a 20 or a 22. If I want something delicate, then I usually go for a 24 or 26.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Same. I have, since studying with Gregor, I've got a little more affection for the 16 and 18 gauge for some of the sturdy little armatures. Yeah. But they're not usually very good for bouquet work.
Yeah.
I like the 2022s for bouquet work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Fernbrook Floral. There's a tongue twister for switching away from foam. That's good.
Nice.
Yeah. It was suggested in a previous conversation that we talk about why foam is important to shift away from. So I'll just toss that in there. What's up with your eyebrows? I don't know. I'll just throw in there. Foam is a single-use plastic that breaks into a microplastic and is very polluting to the environment. And also it's made from formaldehyde and other creepy chemicals that make the dust of it hazardous for we florists to breathe. And typically it doesn't come with disposal instructions, so people want to put it in the compost because it's with flowers, but then it contaminates the compost and it's no good. So that's why I stay away from floral foam in my practice. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, for me, the whole foam issue came about because I was teaching for farmer florists. So I was teaching large-scale installation design to farmer florists, and instinctually I knew, like, these people don't want to talk about single-use anything. Like, it's all about making the most of, the materials in front of you and, using them responsibly and disposing of them responsibly. So I had never been a huge foam designer, but I would use foam for certain designs. It seemed like that was the only answer for certain designs. But when I was posed with this kind of challenge, to think through some of these typical designs without foam, it became like a personal just challenge, I suppose. And through that, I had to evaluate why I even used it in the beginning, what its impact is, of course. And honestly, doing shoots and doing a lot of workshops, I realized that a lot of these designs only need to be viewed for a short amount of time, a short window of time. And so hydration isn't as big of an issue as it is posed, by people to be.
Sure.
So just thinking through this challenge, evaluating my part, what I want to do with flowers, how I want to behave in my business, and in the world. And then what are actually the limitations on the designs? So evaluating those made me think, I can really shed this and I'm not losing anything.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing that I don't like, this is a little tricky to articulate, but coming up in the floral world and going through certification programs and going to a lot of conferences, foam makers sponsor a lot of these design shows, and so foam is often given as the way to do it, the proper way to hydrate for large scale installation, or the proper way to hydrate for a large elevated centerpiece. Without introducing the other ways that are available to the florist. And that got under my craw, man. There are other ways. I don't want to be force fed this solution over and over and over when through experience I've seen that there are other ways to do it. It's not necessary 80% of the time. The hydration solution doesn't need to be that extreme. Totally. In the context of event floristry.
And in the vase, when we are more concerned about longevity, we don't always need I feel like foam is, if there is an application for foam, I feel like it is for the super line control designers who want absolute placement that does not move, jiggle, shift, or anything. And mostly people don't design that way anymore, so you don't have to have the foam in the vase for the hydration and the stiffness of placement. And some people say, okay, for events, as you transport it, things move around. I don't know. I've been doing events for 9 or 10 years without foam, and I drive them around up and down hills. I have the shittiest driveway in the world, and if anything can make it to the end of my driveway, it's fine. And I don't use foam, and I don't really think that's an issue for the majority of the design style that's popular in weddings nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, you have to choose your base. The vessel choice has to be smart, right?
Yep.
A very,
your mechanics
very
inside
shallow
it.
compote with a frog traveling, across a mountain is not going to work,
Right.
But
that's a call for on-site design if you can swing it.
Right, but, proper vessel choice, proper mechanics, it's totally fine. Totally fine. I will
go.
make one point, though. I think about, when I talk about this, I'm talking in the context of event floristry, right? Because that's my little world. But when you're talking about people who are executing like funerals, right? That's a little bit more of a challenge. Like, you need something that will ride on top of the casket without sloshing water. I mean, there's some limitations there. So I'm more understanding, in that context when it comes to foam use.
Right. So we've had a couple comments from the Petal Exchange, and she wants to know what is the proper vessel, but also I don't remember the exact question, but it's like a niche market, and how do you basically find, I think the gist of the question is, how do you find the client that wants the foam free? And so I'm going to say, for me, what I get is people so customers come to me with the picture of the flowers that they want, and they're arranged.
Yeah.
And they have no idea how they are arranged, and they don't care. They want the end result. What happens to get to that end result isn't their concern. In my experience, when I talk to them about how that happens and how I do it differently, I can then make it their concern. And when they know that it's a polluting, toxic thing, they no longer want that. So I have the power to educate them and to shift what they know, and then how they would continue then to buy. So because I too am an event-focused florist, I feel like I have the power, though, to then shift their buying decisions for the rest of their flower buying life. Now they know that they want to look for things that are made without foam and that sort of deal. So I don't so much, I definitely have a message about sustainability on my page for clients, and some people come to me for that, but a lot of people just come for me because I am here and they see pretty pictures on my website. And so I have the ability to also convert my audience.
Right.
For you you have served weddings, but now serving to the art world, what's your thought on that sort of realm in the art world and the teaching world?
The more I teach, the more I talk, the more I test, designs, I don't think it's a necessary hydrating solution. I just don't think that it is holding on to it. I don't think it's necessary to produce, the kind of art that people are wanting to produce.
Right. And the workarounds are things like proper materials choice. So choosing materials that don't need the water.
Yep.
It is providing alternate water sources like test tubes and eco-fresh wraps. Jump in here if you want to add things in. You have that list of reliables that people can refer to. Yeah. And it's hydration method and how you process.
Yeah, 100%. So for me, it's material choice. That's the first thing I go to. So I'm not choosing things like South American hydrangea that need water for a large-scale installation. I'm choosing things, that can be made ahead of time, hydrated, stored, and that look great for the length of an event. Really, that's my favorite, go-to method for getting around needing a lot of hydration solutions.
Yeah. You pick the material for your design. It makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't put the super fancy plush carpet in the playroom, right?
Right.
When we're designing anything, we need to pick the thing that suits the design, right?
Exactly.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a question about vessel choice, go-to vessels for centerpieces. So I don't have my my vases here at the studio, but maybe we can somehow share that at another later date.
Right, sure. My go-to is things that are shallow-ish, but still have plenty of a reservoir.
Right.
So that I can, for transporting, pour out 3/4 of the water. So before I leave the studio, as I load the car, I dump out the majority. I put it in with a little bit so the flowers have moisture, but it's not sloshing like crazy. And then I pour them back in.
Yeah.
And someone's saying, where do you get them? I mean, I do love me some accent decor, and I order through my wholesaler, or you can order directly through them. Someone is saying that they bought the AgriWool, but they haven't had a chance to use them yet because of postponements. Yeah.
So we did have a question, and somebody actually messaged me about the leather that I use. So can we talk about that?
Totally.
Okay. So most of the mechanics, I'd say like 95% of the mechanics I use in the studio are either reused, again and again, or they can be repurposed, the client can repurpose them. So this person said, what about, the leather that you use to make jewelry and the jewelry bases, the metal jewelry bases and the wire and so on? Like, how do you feel about that in terms of sustainability? So I'll say that, the jewelry bases are meant to be worn again. So the cuffs, are made of like a nice heavy duty brass that's like a very good looking minimalist, piece of jewelry after the flowers are spent. So that can definitely be worn again, and it's meant to be kept and worn again. The leather bases, now this is something that bothers me. I do use kind of a really nasty faux leather, plastic pleather material, and I love it because it's waterproof and it's easy to cut and it's inexpensive and everybody can find it. I use that as bases for some of my jewelry pieces. I'm putting floral.
Why not actual leather?
Well, it's more expensive, but yeah, you could use actual leather. You could use felt. You could use a plant-based leather. You could use waxed canvas. But, even if you do use any of those, you can't compost them after you put all of that floral glue on the piece. So I feel like, it's kind of one of those things. I feel okay about it because, I do promote corsage and wearables and all of that. So I'm asking people to make a lot of it. But in the general scheme of things, it's not filling up trash cans full of waste,
Right.
So I feel like...
Well, and here's the deal. Like, so I like to talk about the better than concept, right? Like, none of us are perfect, right? Like, I like coffee and avocados and lemons, and I will have them come from around the world so that I can eat them, right? We aren't perfect. We all are going to have an impact. And so, like you're saying, the corsage, the necklace, it's a small contribution. And I think that there is also to weigh the scales, like, okay, so they're going to go in the trash and they've got nasty glue, and maybe I'm just justifying because I love it, but also like beauty, creativity, artistry, like then we also need that. Like, we need to feed our souls too. And it's not, I'd rather do a foam-free compostable installation and then make some garbageable, in the end, garbage jewelry, because the mass is, do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
You're cutting out the thing that creates buckets and buckets full of trash,
Right.
So there's other ways. I saw a comment come through. You can wire leaves together and have that be your base. You certainly can, but you still can't compost those leaves after you put the floral glue on them.
Right. And floral tape is a paraffin, which is a petroleum base.
Right.
So, that wax tape that we use, that shouldn't go in your compost either.
Right.
So, it's tricky. You can take everything apart. But like the Petal Exchange says, doing something is better than nothing. Like, it's small actions. Yeah. So if we keep our dirty actions small and our better actions big, if we think about what we're doing and why, and bring in. Yeah. I also saw that Nicole has a question about hydrating the floral jewelry and the wraps. And she mentioned, do you use EcoFresh for packaging your wearables? So I wanted to clarify. EcoFresh I only use for a cash and carry bouquet, where you're going to wrap the base of the stems up and give it to someone to take home, or for bunches up in an installation to hydrate them. Yeah. But for the wearables, EcoFresh, I think that wouldn't be the best and highest use of them, because there's a lot of mass in that, like the fabric that the EcoFresh is made of is thick.
Yeah.
And if you put it on top of a petal layer of jewelry, it would be heavy. It would smash it. And it's unnecessarily not that EcoFresh is expensive, but you just don't need it. So paper towels are what I use.
Yeah. Or packaged paper
towels and
flower boxes, you know.
Yep. Or even you can do damp newspaper underneath. And then when you're sending them to the client, you can just use a tissue paper, and hopefully you've hydrated it already overnight.
Yep.
You know, in the moist paper towel, and then you take it out of that, you put it in tissue, and you give it to your client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to see something that I'm really excited about?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Always.
You probably already saw this because I think we talked about it, but my huge
your giant
So I cut, this is a gourd. So this is like the tissue structure from a gourd, and you can grow these yourself, which is pretty cool.
Grow your own mechanics. I love it.
Totally. I don't know how long it takes to mature, but you could be waiting a while.
A summer.
Anyway.
I mean, they're annual. It's like a cucumber.
Right. So I took a little slice out of this huge loofah, and I punctured it. I kind of inserted a wire through it to give it a backbone. And then this became, instead of chicken wire, this became, the structure, the armature to wire flowers into. And you could certainly glue them into if you're feeling like gluing. But man, it's rigid, it's strong, it's durable, durable, that is. It's impossible to rip, and it's light, and it's comfortable. It's I'm in love with this.
Could you put it on a casket?
Well, you probably could, but then attaching the flowers,
Right. I mean, I feel like I don't do any memorial work, right? So I have really nothing to offer to the people that want foam-free memorial, and I see somebody is asking about that, or was asking.
I'm hopeful.
And I know you have, you're hopeful about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and so then it's just the shape of the container. The only thing with the agar-wool, which I wish they would not call floral foam, I wish they would call it floral wool. But anyway, I think that will have a lot of promise, but it is tough. It's a little tough.
Yeah.
So my plan soon, I realized that the craft store near us, because of the mask making frenzy, they are open, and I can get some actual nasty old foam from them. So my hope is this week to do an agar-wool foam side-by-side comparison of pierceability and how it stays together. So anyway, that's a random. But casket spray, meanwhile, do a garland, right?
Definitely. Yeah, you could do a beautiful garland. You could use, things that don't need water for, 3-4 days. Just choose materials wisely. You can use EcoFresh wrap, make some bundles, some cascading bundles out of the EcoFresh wrap, and then make a garland out of those with twine.
Yep.
And that could be beautiful. But yeah, it's a big problem. I mean, people want something that is highly functional, that's not going to slosh around or slip off the casket, because that's a nightmare.
Yep.
They want something traditional looking, something they're used to selling and used to pleasing their clients with, right? So
right.
We just
meeting
need
expectations.
Yeah, they have to meet expectations, but I think
and the expectations are based on old school mechanics, which is where the agar-wool brings the promise.
Right. Yeah. All we need is some cages made out of really durable, pressed paper pulp, or a casket saddle made out of that. Those materials can hold water for up to 2 weeks. So it's just a matter of.
I haven't told you, but I think I found us a person.
Really?
So, yeah. So I'll tell you more when I know more. But he's very involved in all of the. So King County or just Seattle, City Seattle, they don't allow any non-compostable, and it's industrial composting, not home composting, but they don't allow any non-industrial compostable food packaging. So there's all sorts of stuff. And there's a guy that's been instrumental in making all of that go. And he knows a bunch of manufacturers. And so I emailed him the other day and he said, oh, I bet I know people and I'll hook you up. And so he's asked me for some information. So anyway, fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed.
I love it.
Someone wants to know if they think that the loofah could be used for wrist corsage. Totally, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, you can cut whatever little slice that you want out of it, you know, and then with the headpiece, I wired, or taped rather, a floral wire, and then sent it through the body of the piece, and then I have loops on either side. So you could picture
Put some ribbon on that.
Right. Picture this much smaller and then run your ribbon through and then it can, you know, go on the wrist. I don't know how comfortable it would be on the wrist, but after I designed it, I sprayed it with water and then put it in the hydration chamber. And once it was in the hydration chamber and getting, you know, a little bit of moisture, it really softened up. So like this roughness really eased right up and it was comfortable to wear.
But it would then dry up again. I mean, you could put a ribbon on the back of it, but then why do you need the loofah if you're going to have a ribbon on it anyway? Right. You could just glue onto the ribbon. But ribbons only come in certain shapes, and the loofah could become whatever shape you want. So yeah.
Cool.
It's fun. Have you always been like a mad scientist brain when you were a little kid? Did you like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was really
do
naughty.
Weird
I did a lot
mad
of
scientisty things?
Yes.
You were naughty.
My mom was a big baker back in the day. She baked all our bread, and one of her favorite stories is she used to, you know, get those huge rolling containers like canisters of flour, and she kept them in the garage. And one day I took that whole canister of flour and mixed it with antifreeze and made a big bread in the driveway.
Oh my god!
And it was like bubbling and poofing in the driveway and like expanding. So.
Antifreeze.
Yeah. It was there. It was next to the flower in the garage.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And it has that mad scientist appeal.
Yes. There's a question about did the hair get wet from the loofah? And no, it didn't. No. It like really absorbed the moisture of the hydration chamber perfectly in this very lovely way, and it softened up. And when I put it on my head and I wore it for some time, it didn't drip or ooze or do anything bad. No, it was really
it's not like putting a wet sponge on your head.
No. The texture is really nice. I'm happy with this. I like this. Yeah.
Cool. Fun. Yeah. Well, what else? Let's see. So, not that you haven't given a bunch of people any tips, but do you have any tips that you want to share or a message that you want to send to people?
Well, the latest thing that's under my craw is talking about like the golden ratio and 3-5-8. So I feel like this is a topic that's not given the attention it deserves, and it's so fascinating. And you and I have geeked out on this quite a bit, but I decided to do a little live yesterday. I did a live on it, so you can go to my IGTV and watch that if you so choose. And then there's this great book, Searching for Design by Dan Harwell.
I have that sucker too.
Yeah, and I just love
corny as can be, but I love it.
Oh, I love it. So I've been geeking out on that and thinking about, you know, how can I share more about this and how helpful it's been to me. So that's kind of what's brewing.
Well, I would like to give a little shout out to Joe Massey, who's doing a live, I think Wednesday. Go check his feed, but I think he said Wednesday, 6 p.m. GMT. And Joe's great at explaining that kind of thing too. So watch Sue's live and then go check out Joe's live and pester him for information. Yeah.
Joe's amazing. Joe is a brilliant teacher. He has digested all of these concepts so thoroughly and is able to articulate them beautifully. So, highly recommend.
In stylistically relevant work, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's the other thing that I like about Joe is that his work is people can engage with it. I mean, there's other teachers that I know that are really good at it, but you look at their work and it's like it's too intellectual, maybe. You know what I mean? And so it's harder for people to really relate to. And so it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, where stylistically people look at it, they think, I don't like that, and then they stop engaging with it.
Right.
And I think that's the difference with Joe's work is it's beautiful. You want to stay into it, you know, and look at it. And so then when you see the design that goes behind it, it's interesting that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, someone was asking about sources for the book. Some of them are out of print and you just have to hunt. So, yeah.
So the Searching for Design by Dan Harwell, I did do some Googling yesterday, and I found quite a few used copies available through Amazon, different sellers. Not a lot, though. I saw like maybe 12 copies.
Yep.
But Ikebana books are also fabulous for this because... you can see so clearly the concepts and how they play out. Somebody's asking
Joe,
his last name. Joe
Massey.
Massey. Joseph
Massie.
Yes.
Yep, and Amy Nicole just typed it for us. Thank you.
Yeah, this is another one that I like. The last name is Sato, The Art of Arranging Flowers.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep. That's all I got.
Cool. Yeah. Nice.
There's a kid scampering in the kitchen, and it's so distracting.
Well, are you going to get a door? Or do you have a door? That doesn't have a door, does it?
I need a door.
I think you need a door.
I need 2 doors.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the one is a big opening, right?
Yeah, the one is too big probably to close off, but between the kitchen and the studio.
You could get a screen.
I could.
Like a folding screen. Yep.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah. Yep, we're just doing what we can with what we got for now, right?
Yes.
You could get an old, like, Grateful Dead tapestry and hang it, right?
Beads. How about beads?
A bead wall. Oh, but then they would be in the bead wall all the time.
It's true.
I used to love those bead curtains.
The other thing I'm doing is learning how to make baskets.
I saw that, and that was one of my things I wanted to do this year. Are you just going up with online tutorials? Dude, that's gorgeous.
Is it?
What?
It's willow.
What is it?
It's willow. It's a little tiny basket made out of willow.
I love it.
Yeah.
Are you just going to online tutorials for that, or?
Well, I've just been on YouTube looking around, and there's this adorable guy named Paco Wabari, and he's hilarious. And this is based on his raspberry bramble basket.
That would be painful. I've just been rehabbing my raspberry patch, and my fingers are full of tiny thorns.
Well, he strips them. He strips them with his glove first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I'm just looking at a comment from Erica. Oh, on the rules about design work and how it's affecting her flower photography. It's totally true.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a diagram in your book, Sue, that's really helpful. If anybody hasn't tuned in about the placement, I wonder if I can get to it quickly.
The rule of thirds?
If you have the book, it's kind of this one, which is helpful both for how to place the flowers in there, but also then how you might place that work in the lens of your camera, I think. Not being great at either of those things.
Well, the rule of thirds is, most commonly used in photography and in filmmaking, cinematography. Yeah. So it's like where you place the focal emphasis within the frame to get the most visual, movement and rhythm. So instead of like being centered like I am now, you're like purposely in 1/3. So, and then you place other interesting things, corresponding to that focal area. And exactly. Yeah. So the eye goes to the focal area, then it goes across the frame to see the other interesting thing, and it starts moving around in a spiral fashion that also, borrows from the concepts of the golden ratio.
Fibonacci. Yeah.
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 So
It's awesome.
Really
It's deep.
it is deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Cool. Well, we are just about out of time. I think this has been a lovely session today. I've enjoyed spending time with you and hearing from everyone.
I hope I gave
What's next?
I hope I gave some nuggets of information that were helpful. I don't know. I saw a lot of questions go through that I couldn't catch. So
yeah, we can go back and answer them manually offline. And I'm sure both of us can mine those comments for future tutorials and things like that. You know.
Yeah.
I have had a dickens of a time, like my grandmother would say, figuring out how to get these shared lives onto IGTV. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I have been putting them on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
So you can check that out, and it'll be in my stories. I have figured out how to, it will go to stories for 24 hours, so we can look at them there, and then YouTube. So if anybody wants to refer back, that's where it will live.
Okay.
Maybe if I can get savvier with tech or devices or something, I don't know.
So you don't have an iPhone, but when you press end.
No, it's not the case with the shared. The shared thing screws it all up.
Really?
Really.
Oh.
Yeah. It's poopy.
Okay. All right. I'll text you. I might have another solution.
Okay. Yeah, all this tech stuff, it's overwhelming. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining.
Yes, thank you.
And fare thee well. Do the best with what you have at hand.
Yeah.
Try to take a moment to indulge yourself in creativity. That connecting with nature is such a calming and empowering thing to do. Just take a walk, pick a dandelion, take it apart,
Yeah.
glue it onto something. I don't know.
I mean, I'm almost fully domesticated at this point. I'm baking bread. I'm making baskets. I'm like going back to my roots.
Yeah. There's a question about an organic solution for the hydration solution, so that'll be one we can tackle offline. I don't think there really is anything except for just mist it with water.
Yeah.
I mean, plant tissues like water, so...
Yeah, I'm a water person because, again, I'm an event florist, so I don't need things to last, past, Sunday morning, right?
Right.
So if I was a retail florist, I might be more concerned with longevity, but I just use water.
I know for the in the water hydration solutions, though, those liquids that you mix into your bucket water, some of the Floralife, I think it is, products do qualify for organic rating or whatever. So I don't think we need to say that they're all bad news. Some of them are just citric acid and like some glucose or whatever, and so they're not like terrible. And some of them do even qualify for organic certification. So check that out. They're not all necessarily bad.
Yeah.
So
and at the grower level, if things are cut and put into solution at the grower's level, then I think that's maybe the most important piece. Do you agree?
Right. And we can get those same grower solutions and use them. Studios, and especially if we're picking our own stuff from our yards or whatever, it's good to have those things. And yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Bye. Have a good one.
You
All right. Love y'all.
Love you.
Bye.